The new Copilot Plus PC edition of the Asus Vivobook S15 is an absolutely exceptional piece of kit. The overall aesthetic and design style is extraordinary. It's clean and crisp, with a beautiful metal finish complete with exceptionally subtle Asus branding. This is a professional device at its core, and it really does show. Open up the Vivobook and you're greeted with an outstanding OLED display, with sharp vibrant colors, and a snappy 2880 by 1620 resolution, all hurtling along at 120 Hz. That'd be good enough, but Asus has color calibrated this thing as well, so the contrast and vibrancy are stunning. Combine that with sound developed in conjunction with Harman/Kardon, which is honestly some of the best audio I've heard coming out of a laptop ever, and the Vivobook S15 is lining itself up to be an absolute winner. For hardware, the most interesting element is the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite processor. It's an ARM-based system-on-a-chip, SoC, similar to Apple's M3 line of chips found in the MacBook Air, and features an incredibly low 45W power draw. That's been paired with 16 GB of 8440 MHz DDR5 memory, a phenomenally high speed even given current desktop PC standards, and a solid 1TB of PCIe 4.0 storage. Combine all of that with a bevy of connectivity options, plus a relatively affordable price tag, and all of a sudden you're looking at one of the best laptops out there for general day-to-day work. It's not flawless, however. It still struggles in games with no dedicated GPU, although AI upscaling does help a ton here, and the general AI features are, right now at least, somewhat limited, with only Microsoft Copilot and Co-Creator being the most fleshed-out features of the lot. Still, AI aside, the Vivobook S15 is just an utterly almost flawless thing. As traditional laptops go, it's outstanding, easily competing with the likes of Dell's XPS line, and far above and beyond the likes of Huawei's MateBook D16. For the price you're paying, there's little not to love. When it comes to the price, the Asus Vivobook S15 is impressively affordable for what you're getting. Rolling in at $1,299.99, £1,299.99/2,699 Australian dollars, it packs in some serious hardware for that cash. There's also a variant with the slightly less powerful Snapdragon X Plus chip for $1,099.99 in the US, although the availability of that model in other regions is unclear at the time of writing. Not only do you get a decent processor for day-to-day work and streaming, plus 16 GB of ridiculously high-spec memory, and a TB of PCIe 4.0 storage, but it also features one hell of an OLED display, with a 3K resolution, 120 Hz refresh rate, and enough color accuracy and vibrancy to keep even the most eagle-eyed of graphic designer happy. This is one of the first Snapdragon X laptops out there, and as such it is a little unproven, mind you. It does lag behind in more traditional PC benchmarks, such as Geekbench and Cinebench, but for general office work, web browsing, and daily activities it's far more than capable. Just don't expect a super seamless experience all the time. There are very few laptops out there that pack in so much hardware for such little outlay. There's AI capacity here too, of course, being one of the main selling points of the S15, more on that in a bit, but even without it, the S15 is absolutely outstanding. The Asus Vivobook S15 Copilot Plus comes in one main configuration with the 12-core Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chip, although a model featuring the 10-core Snapdragon X Plus SoC is also available for a slightly lower price in some regions. As you've likely guessed by this point, the Asus Vivobook S15 is an absolutely beautiful professional laptop or workbook. The satin metallic gray chassis is crisp and sharp, with nice smooth rounded edges. The Asus branding, what little there is a simple sans serif typeface, either just below the screen or engraved gracefully into the rear lid. The bezel on the screen is slim and almost non-existent. Similarly, the keyboard, which is chiclet by design, provides a sublime typing experience, and the trackpad likewise does its job admirably too. The I/O certainly isn't lacking either. For your money, you get two USB 4 Type-C ports, two USB 3.2 Type-A ports, a micro SD card reader, a 3.5mm combo audio jack, and an HDMI out as well. It also comes with a fairly admirably built-in microphone, along with a decent built-in FHD webcam as well. In general, it's actually just a very well-built laptop. There's no gimmicky folding display, or two-in-one design here for you to get used to, no touchscreen capability, or pens, just a simple, clean design. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, seems to be the motto. Under the hood, you of course get that ARM-based Snapdragon processor. This is the X-Elite X1E 78-100 chip, catchy, running at 3.4 GHz, and it features 12 cores, no hyperthreading, and a 42 MB cache as standard. Asus touts that this thing has a total AI processing power of around 75 TOPS to help with the onboard AI capabilities the Vivobook S15 has. That's paired with a dedicated Neural processor. As well, Qualcomm's Hexagon NPU, which adds an additional 45 TOPS to the equation. That's been paired with 16 GB of LPDDR5X memory rated at a whopping 8,440 metric tons per second. That's ridiculously quick, even by some of the best desktop PC standards, and quite a curious addition that suggests that both AI tasks and these Snapdragon chips really do benefit from high-frequency memory, perhaps even more so than the likes of AMD and its Ryzen processors, which generally benefit from higher frequency kits thanks to their Infinity Fabric interconnect being tied to the memory speed. The only minor downside here is that the Vivobook S15 has soldered LPDDR5X, and there are no alternative models either, so 16 GB is your lot sadly. Because at its heart, the Snapdragon is an ARM-based chip, running off a different architecture compared to traditional processors found from AMD and Intel, which typically operate on an x64 architecture design. Support is a bit mixed when it comes to general application use. That generally means you are going to find a lot of programs listing the CPU as emulated. Windows is effectively forcing the ARM processor to emulate and behave as a traditional x64 chip in certain programs, to ensure they operate correctly. That will have a minor detrimental effect on overall performance, but it shouldn't be that noticeable if I'm honest. ARM and Asus clearly learned from the troubles Apple encountered with its first M1 processors, and compatibility is far greater now than it was back then for ARM-based processors because of it. As for the less volatile storage, Asus has popped in a 1TB PCIe 4.0 SSD, and it does a pretty good job when it comes to sequential transfers, although more on that in a bit.